Hey everyone, this is Will Builds Episode 2, Part C. We're in the middle of kind of building out the handle area of this NERF gun that we've been working on the past couple videos. I made it to, I guess, through most of the basic shape of this handle. Showed you guys one method for building out this sort of offset, cool, chamfered thumb area of the trigger, and we already outlined a few other things that we wanted to be able to build using similar techniques. So I'm going to do a few more of those in a maybe a little bit shorter video just to build on part B before I got to take off. So let's just jump right into this and get back into Solidworks. So here's the handle. Again, I did a quick mirror just to kind of show you guys where we're eventually ending up. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this mirror feature because we don't need it yet. And just like in the main body build in video part A for the NERF gun, where we were kind of shelling often to make sure that the shell would succeed, I'm going to continue to knit my surfaces and also try a thicken to make sure that those two operations, which are things that get me to eventually where I want to be, resolve. So I've got a couple other areas. Let me just see in my desk cam. Yeah, so I'm going to try and do, I think maybe this trigger area, because it's a little bit different. I don't think we're going to do exactly an offset. I guess we could try it. I maybe try a different way of building this surface number 4 here. So let's see if we can get through that in about 10-15 minutes. Back to my display capture. And yeah, so same basic setup here. I'm going to sketch on my right plane some of the lines that I'm going to use to kind of trim out that surface. And again, kind of looking at this here. And actually, I might try something different here. So we've referenced the idea of a master sketch a couple times in the past, putting multiple lines that then we'll use for multiple features in a single sketch. So let's try that with some of these other features here. So most of these surfaces I'm using to cut into my main handle shape have been style splines, and I think we're going to probably stick with that for now. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to find some really quick dimensions here. Again, dimensioning these areas of your surface is going to be important for getting an accurate model of your handle. Because this demo is a little bit more about technique than winding up with a dimensionally accurate model myself, I might skip on some of the more super detailed dimensioning or accuracy, just for the sake of showing you guys some technique stuff. In general, that area of my handle is about 60 millimeters from here to here. And one more time, this is not really robust engineering level modeling. It's not exactly how I would model something in my professional design life. This is just sort of in process model, modeling for a visual reference, specifically to help teach you guys the basics of building something with surfaces and solids and getting used to changing features and setting up features. We'll talk about more sophisticated modeling next semester. Stuff that's easier to update. Okay. One more time for all these setups, I'm going to want to make sure that my curves are sort of perpendicular to this edge curve. That way my features wrap around the front of my handle properly. If you notice you're getting some jagged edge features on your surfaces, building them this way, that's probably what's happening. I'm going to go ahead and tweak some of these just a little bit to give me a shape that's a little closer to like the actual shape of my handle. Oops. If for some reason these points aren't giving you everything that you need, you can click your line, right-click on it next, and say Insert Control Vertex, and it will actually let you place additional control handles onto your line. And yeah, see, I think it gave me another one here. I think I probably want another one in here too. Yeah, come on. Did it do it? I'm not sure it did. Oh, there we go. There's the other control vertex. I'm going to add a couple more out here to give me some like sharper corners. Come on. Okay, so you can play around with this a whole bunch and make sure that these corners are doing exactly what you want them to do. Drag this down. Oops, it added a rotation there. Okay. Anyway, I could fiddle with that until I'm happy with it. So that's one curve. As we saw in the last video, doing sort of like an offset of that curve can help with the double trim that we end up doing for like an outside surface and an offset surface. I'm going to build in a couple more of these curves that we need. So another style spline for right here. Again, just double checking that my curve by clicking on like this control handle for the curve says that everything is parallel. If stuff moves around, that's fine. You can always scoot stuff back where it needs to be. Same for this. Oops, that's not the control handle. That little area is. That should be perpendicular to my curve here. Apparently I didn't pick it right. Scroll in and there we go, perpendicular. Alright, so that's probably going to come up here a little bit more. These are all going to be like cuts. Let's see, and I'll throw in another style spline, which actually is going to come all the way up to the top here. In general, if you need like a sharper curve, putting more points in that area will allow the curve to stay kind of sharper. And if you want a curve to be very smooth, you don't really need as many control points in that area of the curve. Just scroll in and make sure I'm getting the line. Cool, I can get a perpendicular in there. Check. Okay. So we've got a few cuts here. I'm going to get out of this. Now, normally you want to like dimension, make sure this gap is what you're expecting, this gap is what you're expecting, that this is what you're expecting too. You can do it visually. Again, for speed, I'm just going to kind of eyeball some of this stuff just to get to the technique side of how to make these surfaces translate the way you want them to. So I'm going to get out of this sketch. And because we have multiple curves on this sketch, I'm going to go ahead and call this a master front of handle trim sketch, something descriptive. because I want these curves to stay on a sketch that I can change later. And instead of using that sketch to do the trim, I'm going to make some new sketches on the right plane and then convert those curves independently, get out of that sketch. So that's one sketch right there. I'm going to do the same thing again. Convert this curve. Okay. Get out of it. Make another sketch on my right plane. Convert that other curve. Yep, that one. Oops, I grabbed the line, not the curve. Just delete that and try again. Yeah, with the curve. Let's grab that sketch. I'm going to save really quick. Alright, so at least two of these surfaces, to go back to my camera, look like they are pretty much offsets of my existing surface. This surface looks like pretty much an offset. So does this one, minus those like ribs. This one is a little bit different, and we might set that up differently. So we'll start with the two easy ones, and then go to the trickier one. Let's go back to display capture. I'm going to hide my master sketch for now. And just start by going to my Surfaces tab, and we're going to do some, actually we're going to make an offset first. An offset of this surface. We'll just say about, again, like 1, maybe 1.5 millimeters in, like that. So now I have like an indented copy of this main surface. Then I'm going to do some trimming. So I'm going to, let's square up here. I'm going to trim using that sketch. I'm going to remove this area of my outside, and then this area of my inside. And actually, I might have to duplicate that offset surface a couple times. That's fine. Actually, can I pick multiple trim tools? No, it won't let me do that. Alright, the reason I'm doing this as like independent trims is that way if I need to delete or edit one, it doesn't blow everything else up. So let's try this one more time. My trim tool is the sketch. I'm going to remove this area of my outer surface. I'm going to remove, looking at the back side, this area of my inner surface. Right, like green check mark, and there we go. It's like an offset. That looks kind of how I expected it to look, which is good. We're going to do the same thing again with this curve up top, but I'm going to make another offset surface to do the trim. Okay, so we're going to trim the surface with my curve. I'm going to, again, like remove this section of my outer surface, this section of my inner surface, right click or green check mark. Okay, now we're getting there. That's looking pretty good. And you can kind of see this like gap in between these two surfaces. I'm going to have to bridge with a loft. I'm going to save really quick. And then for this surface, this other one, it doesn't look like an offset, so I'm going to do something a little different. I am going to start with a trim using this curve, and I'm going to remove this section here. But you'll notice because I didn't create another offset surface, I kind of have just like a hole in the front of my handle. I'm going to build that new surface kind of from scratch. So here's how I'm going to try and set this up. I'm going to sketch on my right plane, look straight at it. I'm actually going to draw a spline with the curve that I want this thing to have. because it's not quite an offset. It's a little bit different. Okay, once I have that curve drawn, again, I might play around with this a little bit, try and make it as close as I can to the shape of my model. That looks pretty good. I'm going to get out of that sketch. And then I think I might have to make one more sketch in here to make this work. Well, let's try something. So I'm going to save, go to my Surfaces tab, and try a, I might try a loft first and see if I can get this curve to loft to this edge. I might have to like switch the start and end points of this thing. Yeah, that's actually looking pretty good. For the sketch, I'm going to have a start constraint that says normal to profile to make sure everything stays nice and like tangent across the front of this. And I'll say green check mark. Cool, actually that works just about right. So you can see it's a little bit different than an offset surface. I actually controlled that a little more closely because it does look a little bit more like inset on the handle than these other offset surfaces. So I guess the last piece of this puzzle would be connecting some surfaces, and actually this one I might do. It looks like I could use a little offset in between here, but I'm going to skip that for now. Let's do a couple of quick lofted surfaces to connect these areas of my handle that are disconnected. So I'm just going to pick like that line to that line. And if these green dots start endpoints are off, you can actually change them so they start and end kind of at the same end of the curve. And that surface should resolve. Yep, that looks pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing down here between this curved edge and this curved edge. My start and end green points are, they look correct. I've got a brand new surface inside there. Cool. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to save. And let's test our knit one more time. So I'm going to try and knit everything together. Gotta pick all these different surfaces. I gotta make sure I get these little surfaces in between the edges that I built. Make sure any gaps have the check mark next to them so they're being filled. Little green check mark. It looks like everything knit all right. And then it looks like I have, yeah, just the one surface body. This other one was like a trim surface they used earlier that we're not seeing. Let's try our thicken. So in order to thicken the thickness of the plastic, which I still haven't measured, let's say it's maybe 1.5 millimeters. What surface? This whole thing. Thicken it to the inside. Let's see what happens. Okay, it resolved for me. So there we go. That's a much we're getting there as far as like building this handle. After the thicken would be an appropriate time to go back through because now we have a solid to like add some little fillets to like the edges of this. Oh man, 0.5 might even still be too much. Well, add like aesthetic fillets to the edges of this thing here. Maybe trying to do that all as, oh, I picked the whole face, that's why. I just want like that edge. Yeah, and that edge. I would do these kinds of fillets after the thicken just because they tend to mess with things a little bit. And apparently I picked an edge through the other side. Anyway, you get the idea. Do these kind of small fillets after you do the thicken and all of your main surfacing. So let me delete that really quick and show you a mirror to give you a little progress update on how this handle is coming together. Let's see, across the right plane. We'll mirror this entire body. right click or green check mark to say OK. Oh, I'm trying to merge solids. I'm going to just turn that off if for some reason the mirror isn't working. These are going to be separate parts eventually anyway. So, and there you have a little bit further, I guess, a little more progress on my handle here. Now there are still a bunch of things I'd want to add, like some of these ribbing details on the front. This, finding a way to integrate the, I guess we'll go to Descan, integrate like this component into the handle, sort of building the top end of my trigger area as well. But I think with the techniques we've covered, you guys have a fighting chance. So anyway, that's it for part C of this Nerf gun build video. There's more stuff I'd like to post later on this weekend. Don't forget to reach out with your questions. Hopefully this gives you a good running start on the stuff that you've either already completed or you've been waiting to complete. So, all right, thanks.